Hello, my name is Mario, your digital presenter for today's event. Before we dive into the exciting and informative content we've prepared for you, here's a quick disclaimer. I'm actually an artificial intelligence, AI, designed and programmed to assist with sharing valuable knowledge and resources. I am here to provide evidence-based, up-to-date information and guidance, and we'll be sharing real stories from my colleagues at FND. Here at FND we value honesty and transparency in all our interactions. We at the Family Network on Disabilities believe that the incredible advancements in technology, such as AI, can significantly enhance our ability to provide families with the resources, support, and information they need. All the information shared in this training comes from the dedicated team of experts at FND, who have years of experience, rich understanding, and most importantly, a deep passion for supporting families just like yours. Family Network on Disabilities began in 1985 by a group of parents of children with disabilities who came together looking for mutual support. FND is a grassroots organization for persons with disabilities and their families that is family-centered and family-driven. What makes FND unique is that the majority of our board members, our management staff and program staff are either individuals with experience with a disability or have family members with a disability, which gives us the perspective of empathy and compassion for the work that we do. Before we begin, I'd like to share a little bit about Family Network on Disabilities. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization helping families across the state. We're funded in part by the U.S. Department of Education and the U.S. Department of Health through the Health Resources Services Administration. We use all that funding to provide information, resources and support, and training to families, educators, professionals and providers throughout the state. We do not charge for our services. At this time we would like to make a disclaimer that we at FND are not attorneys, doctors, or mental health professionals. We do not offer legal or medical advice in our workshops. We are happy to support you with information, resources, and support. We use research-based information in our training and materials. Today we're going to be talking about collaborative communication. So let's get started. Let's begin with understanding what communication is. All communication has two parts: a sender and a receiver. The sender has a message they intend to transmit and puts it in words which best reflect what they are thinking. However, many things can intervene to prevent the intended message from being received. Factors determine how the message is interpreted by the receiver. All new information we learn is compared with the knowledge we already have. If it confirms what we already know, we will likely receive the new information, though we may pay little attention to it. If it goes against our previous assumptions or interpretation of the situation, we may distort the information, or we may dismiss the information as deceptive, misguided, or simply wrong. According to Stephen Covey, an American educator, author, businessman, and keynote speaker who wrote the popular book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, communication is not just about what you say. Let's look at what communication is really all about. Approximately 10% of our communication is only our spoken words. 30% is within the tone of voice. Our tone of voice can be interpreted as different than our intent based on the situation and the relationship with the listener. But even those two parts of communication only add up to 40%. The largest part of communication is body language. Body language is 60%. So much of what people perceive what you are saying is due to your body language. Body language is a type of a nonverbal communication in which physical behaviors, as opposed to words, are used to express or convey the information. These behaviors include facial expressions, body posture, gestures, eye movement, touch, and the use of space. Communication is not always about what we hear, but it can also be what we don't hear, or what we don't say. We need to remember that every action, even silence, is a form of communication. There are ways that this communication can be misinterpreted. For example, by crossing your arms, you can be perceived as giving an aggressive stance or an agitated stance. By interrupting the speaker, you can also be seen as disinterested in what's being said. A negative tone can be misinterpreted as anger. When you are responding, if your tone comes across a certain way, that can be misinterpreted. Posture, open and friendly, can be seen as engaged in what's being said. Facial expressions actually can give mixed messages, and we need to be aware of that. What we assume our face is saying may not be what the other people are seeing. Silence actually can be seen as a message of denial, frustration, disagreement, or disappointment. For effective communication, we need to actually listen twice as much as we talk. We are taught all our lives that communication is a give and take. First you talk, then I talk, then you talk, and then it's my turn. Well, and while we're talking, we're thinking of what we're going to say next. Sometimes that can get in the way. Communication is not just about talking, it's really about paying attention to what the other person is saying. That kind of focusing on the conversation is called active listening. Let's learn more about active listening. What are the elements of active listening? One thing we need to remember is the way to improve your listening skill is to really practice active listening. This is where you make a conscious effort to hear not only the words the other person is saying, but more importantly, the message that they are communicating. What does that look like? You need to be neutral and non-judgmental. As you listen, be open and allow the information to come without preconceived ideas. Patience is important, and that means that you need to be capable of listening without interrupting. We need to understand also that we listen much faster than other people can speak. We have a tendency to interrupt because we're thinking ahead. Don't interrupt the other person who's speaking, and don't prepare your response while you're listening, because you really can't effectively hear what's being said when you're actually thinking about something else. In addition to listening to what is said, watch your non-verbal behaviors. They have hidden meaning. Facial expressions, tone of voice, and other behaviors can sometimes tell more than your words alone. Make eye contact when the person speaks. In general, you should aim for about 60% to 70% of the time having eye contact while you're listening. Lean in towards the other person, and nod your head occasionally to indicate you are actively listening. And avoid folding your arms, because that seems to appear that you are not listening. You want to ask questions, but you need to shut down your internal dialogue while they're speaking. You also want to avoid daydreaming and listen, while you yourself are not engaged in other thoughts. Ask those questions to clarify what's being said. You want to ask open-ended questions to encourage the speaker to respond to you. You want to avoid those yes and no answers, because you're not going to get the conversation to move forward. It's important to reflect back what the speaker has said. Instead of offering advice or opinions, paraphrase what that speaker has said. For example, you might want to say, in other words, what you're saying is, and allow that to be an opening for a conversation. When you ask for that clarification, you also want to summarize. That means you're going to use the other speaker's words to move to the next step. Whether that means to take action or suggest other steps that need to be taken, or have an answer to a question. Most important, active listening takes practice. It's important that you learn ways to recognize active listening. Watch television interviews and observe whether or not the interviewer is practicing active listening, or if they are interrupting the speaker. You can learn a lot from observing others. What's the opposite of active listening? It's called passive listening. Passive listening is a little more than just hearing what's being said. It's actually listening without reacting. While active listening is about engaging the speaker verbally through the use of body language, passive listening requires the listener to sit back and absorb that information. It's a one-way form of communication, where the receiver doesn't provide feedback or ask questions, and may or may not understand the message that's being sent. In passive listening, the listener may appear to be listening to the speaker's words, but doesn't make an effort to understand the message. Unlike the active listener, the passive listener is really not paying attention. Whenever you listen to music while you're doing something else, such as studying or doing chores, you are passive listening. You may be aware of the music, but your attention is on the task that you're doing. We're just going to read these cute comics to give you some examples of passive listening. On the left, you can see the husband is reading the newspaper, and the wife says, "You can stop saying, I stopped talking to you an hour ago." In other words, he kept responding, but she hadn't been talking. The one on the right is, "What were you saying? My inner voice drowned you out for a second." That's that inner conversation that we shouldn't be having when we're listening actively. Collaborative communication includes a lot of things. It's a process where every individual matters, and all their needs matter equally. The main intention and idea behind its connection takes place when individuals feel that they are heard, seen, and valued. The term collective communication consists of two main concepts actually: collective teams and communication. A collaborative collective team can be a group of people who have communications that are usually open-ended in nature, share common beliefs, ideas, or thoughts, and that works for them towards a common goal. If you're working with teams to secure services for an individual, your loved one especially, it's important to keep these three things in mind, that these are things that are important in collaborative communication. Opinions: everyone comes to the table with their lived experience, knowledge, values, and thoughts on the subject at hand. Respect those personal thoughts and beliefs. Number 2, we mentioned perspectives. There are going to be multiple perspectives in that conversation. and that can help in problem solving and brainstorming options to find solutions. Flexibility is really key to accepting other viewpoints and allowing for that open dialogue. Third, is to remember that the rights of all parties need to be respected and general courtesy. Not just legal rights, but the right to speak without interruption, the right to disagree, and the right to ask questions are a part of that collaborative communication process. Successful communication and collaboration goes beyond merely dividing up tasks and assembling a finished product. It's more about fostering a genuine determination to reach a common objective by sharing that knowledge, insights, and learning to build a consensus. With collaborative communications, both parties are encouraged to do the following. Express honest feelings. When people are not comfortable about giving open and honest input, resentment can build along with that. Others actually are left to draw their own conclusions, which can be far from the truth. The second is the importance of promoting mutual respect. Mutual respect occurs when everyone at the table and every person has critical information to share, whether it's an agreement or with others or not. Third, we want to allow both discussion and disagreement for effective collaborative communication. When individuals feel respected and valued in discussion and even disagreement become possible without unresolved conflict, then we need to work towards that collaborative effort to solve that conflict. Partnership is critical. Fourth, is the respect cultural differences. It's critical to understand that everybody at that table has cultural background that they bring with it, and we need to respect those differences, whether they're various beliefs, behaviors, languages, practices, and expressions considered unique to the members of that ethnicity, race, or origin. Understanding and respecting where individuals come from, what group they belong to, and what belief system they abide by will help to bridge understanding and respect. The last is to remain focused on the topic. Stay focused, driven to the end result. Keep the goal in mind and encourage the same of all team members. Time is precious, and it's difficult to manage when there are many people involved in a collaborative effort. What is a partnership? A partnership, according to this definition, is a relationship between individuals or groups that is characterized by mutual cooperation and responsibility as for the achievement of a specified goal. So as parents and working with providers, our goal is the same. We want successful outcomes. The best outcomes occur when parents, educators, administration, medical and mental health professionals are truly partnering to achieve the same goal and putting their own interests aside for the greater goal. What are some of the barriers to communication? Well, the first could be a negative history. If individuals in that collaborative communication team have negative experiences, they may bring those to the table. We need to remember that everybody does have their own history, their own experiences, and that we have to discuss that if it can become a barrier. The second is health. When a person is not physically feeling well, has chronic conditions, or is emotionally unstable, it will have an effect on their ability to communicate and to interact with that collaborative effort. Emotional responses, too, are often something that can impact outcomes because you're trying to identify what your child needs. There is much discussion about what the child cannot do, and hearing these negative statements can be difficult for a child's parents. So you have to keep your emotional responses in check. Jargon and alphabet soup. All systems of care and providers use words and acronyms that may be unfamiliar to the families. Ask if you don't know. There's always an opportunity to learn in these environments and these collaborations. And lastly, fear of intimidation. It's common for parents and caregivers to feel overwhelmed by the sheer number of professionals sitting in the room. Educate yourself as much as you can before the meetings, but always feel that you're entitled to have an equal voice at that effort. Here's an interesting strategy you can use when there are differences of opinion. It's called the Luck strategy. And it's important again to be mindful of the fact that everybody will come to the table with their own perspective and their own suggestions. The L stands for listen to and restate the other person's opinion. This shows that you've heard the other person clearly, and that you are confirming what you understand their opinion to be. U stands for use a respectful tone. You want to be treated the same way that you are treating others. Be mindful of that respect. The C stands for compromise. So we may compromise, or have to change our opinion if necessary. There's nothing wrong with recognizing that you may be wrong, or that you may not have had all the information. Compromise allows for both parties to come to a resolution that works for all. And the K is to know and state the reasons for your opinions. What information did you base your opinion on? Did you state facts or reasons for your opinion to help others see your viewpoint? Collaborative communication can be useful when working with other co-workers, Assessing personal resources, working with professionals or providers in the different systems that you're going to engage for services. Securing school services, working with others to complete a project. Remember, every system has a different way of operating, and collaboration may look different in every one of those. So be prepared by doing some homework before you are engaged in a collaborative team effort. But team efforts help to improve patient experiences, prevent medication and documentation errors, deliver better client and patient outcomes, and can reduce healthcare costs overall. Working with teams to secure services. How does a team function, and what does that look like? How do we work with the teams to be successful, and how do I engage in a team effort? Well, let's talk about this. What makes a team successful? Well, the team is clear about its mission. The team environment encourages reasonable risks that will help benefit the outcomes. Respectful communication is the norm. There is a strong sense of group commitment. Creativity and innovation are the norms as well. They engage in continuous improvement. So just because they've gotten to a solution that may not always be the solution that's needed for every problem, it solves teamwork problems and conflicts so that they do not fester. Practices. Participative leadership. That means everybody becomes leader at some point in time and makes high-quality decisions. How should you engage in a team effort? Well, here are some suggestions. You can demand courtesy and respect just like everyone else in that team. You're entitled just like they are. If you don't understand or agree with something, speak up. Ask questions. You do have a point of view to be shared, and you have the right to share it. Keep in contact with other team members regularly so that you are engaged and know what the current situations are. Provide feedback, whether positive or constructive. All feedback will help to secure better outcomes. If you're not getting your needs met appropriately, move up the chain of command. Every system has a grievance process that you are entitled to know about. Learn what you can expect when you're meeting and be professional. Everyone in that room should be acting as a professional, whether or not they're there as a paid member. Be assertive, not aggressive. There is a difference. Assertive means that you state yourself and your interests and your needs and wants clearly and definitively. But you are not nasty and aggressive with your tone. And ask the right questions. The who, what, where, when, why, and how to get the right answers. Here are some of the teams you may be working with to get those services. We'll read through them, and then we'll define them a little more clearly. So we have our school teams, our wraparound teams, medical teams, tip models, and project teams. So let's go to the school teams first. The MET or multidisciplinary evaluation team is the one that will evaluate your child, who may be suspecting that you may have a disability. After the evaluation is complete, the IEP or individual education program team will determine whether or not an IEP plan is appropriate for your child. If you do get an IEP or a 504 plan for your child, then you'll be part of that school team, and that team meets regularly, as well as to determine what are the needs and services that will be provided for your child. This will include modifications, program services, and supports that will be offered through the school system and the school environment, and determined by how it impacts the disability impacts your child's ability to learn. Wraparound team is a team of individuals who are relevant to the mental and emotional well-being of the child or youth. That team will create a plan, a treatment plan, and implement this plan and evaluate it as well. And that wraparound team will be individualized for your loved one and family. The supports will be based on the family's needs, goals, desires, and build upon the family's values, cultures, and beliefs. Those strategies that are used will meet the goals based on the strengths of the family and the natural supports that are available in the community. Of course, we have our medical teams. Those can be primary doctors, specialists, therapy providers, social workers, specific individuals related to services such as OTPT and such. Then we have the TIP model, or transition to independence process. This model involves youth and their families and other formal key players in a process that prepares and facilitates their movement into self-sufficiency and successful achievement of their goals as they transition into adulthood. Then we have project teams. That's usually an organized group of people who are involved in performing shared or individual tasks of a project, as well as achieving individual or shared goals and completing that project. Coming together is just the beginning of collaborative communication. We need to remember there are additional steps to that. We need to work together for a common goal, because that's how we mark progress. Bottom line is good. Collaborative communication means that we've been successful. Here you can see our F&D family. These are the programs housed under the Family Network on Disabilities. Each program provides a unique service to a specific population. There are 3 PTI programs, funded by the U.S. Department of Education through the Office of Special Education Programs. Pop-In serves North Florida, PSN serves Southwest Florida, and Penn serves Southeast Florida. The Family Star program, funded by the U.S. Department of Health under the Health Resources Services Administration, and supports families of youth with special health care needs. F&D also has a special needs trust where we provide families with information regarding creating and supporting a special needs trust. We also do programming specific to fathers raising children with disabilities. Here you can see links from multiple downloadable resources available in various languages. You can also see some of our social media platforms. We have various pages on Facebook addressing the needs of different populations in our programs. I invite you to check out our website at www.fndusa.org for the hundreds of pages of resources and invaluable information that you can access and download at no charge. You can reach us to help you and your family by giving us a call at 800-825-5736 and letting us know your needs. You'll be assigned to a staff person who can support you. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Visit our website for valuable resources and more information. We want to thank you for spending this time with us during this presentation. We look forward to hearing from you.